Coming up right now on the webcast, religious fundamentalism. Where did it start and where is it headed? Should we be frightened? And if you're gay, some fundamentalists don't believe you exist. Can I get an amen for life on the left coast? Hello everyone, welcome to Life on the Left Coast for Friday, May 11th, 2007. I'm Ben Patrick Johnson. Just lately there's been a lot going on right in my own backyard, with the park on fire in LA and my neighbor Paris Hilton writing a plea to Governor Schwarzenegger for a pardon. But our show is not usually a discussion about the headlines of the day. More often we try to figure out the how and why behind the stories. We take a look at the big picture from a left coast perspective. And if there's one factor that's been a part of more news stories in recent years than any other, it's arguably the global rise of fundamentalism. Are more people going back to religious roots? What is fundamentalism to begin with? And is it a good thing or a bad thing for society? We've got plenty to examine on today's show, so let's get started. The American Heritage Dictionary defines fundamentalism as a religious movement or point of view characterized by a return to fundamental principles, by rigid adherence to those principles, and often intolerance of other views. Fundamentalists say their outlook is pure. Others accuse them of being dangerously rigid in their views, in a way that invites violence and divisiveness. The term fundamentalism came into use early in the 20th century in reference to certain American Protestants. Since then, fundamentalism has grown to include Orthodox Jews, Mormons, militant atheists, and most recently and visibly, certain Islamics. What makes fundamentalism stand out from more mainstream followers of various creeds is that each fundamentalist sect looks to one and only one text as the source of all meaning and truth in life. The holy book in question varies by group. For the Christians, it's the Bible. For Shia Muslims, the most fundamental sect of Islam, it's the Quran. The events of 9/11 brought Islamic fundamentalism into sharp focus, as well as an association in a lot of our minds between fundamentalism and religious fanaticism, which is characterized by behavior that is often highly antisocial. In fact, the word fanaticism dates back to the 16th century Latin fanaticus, which described behavior that might result from possession by a demon. So we've got some powerful concepts at play here. Islamic fundamentalist fanatics violently attacked America in the name of Allah. But how much of that was fundamentalism and how much was fanaticism? Another common confusion is between fundamentalists and evangelicals. To be fair, there is a lot of overlap. But while fundamentalists insist the Bible be taken literally in all instances, evangelicals see more room for interpretation. Similarly, religious scholars see fundamentalists as quick to separate from other sincere believers when disagreements arise, while evangelicals are more likely to agree to disagree. This separationist tendency is hugely visible in the Orthodox Jewish section of Los Angeles. It used to baffle me, as a naive 20-something from the Midwest, why the Orthodox families walking to synagogue along La Brea Avenue would not only refuse me eye contact, but seemed, in stores and on street corners, to not even be aware that I physically existed. And that's no small feat. A Reformed Jewish friend of mine put it in context for me. "Don't feel bad," she said. "They treat me the same way. Worse, probably, because I look Jewish, only not how they feel I should present myself. I don't cover my hair, I don't wear a long dress, and God forbid if any of them found out I'd had an abortion." And then there's the questions of race and homosexuality. All too frequently, fundamentalists talk about preserving the purity of the race, whatever race those particular fundamentalists tend to be. And if you're gay, good luck to you. You're either sinning or you aren't real. In defense of that position, it could be argued that a full, literal interpretation of the Bible, at least as it's been edited and translated over the millennia, provides several clear passages denouncing homosexuality and homosexual acts. Historically, in parts of the world such as Africa, homosexuality is simply denied by fundamentalists. And it's only recently that the Church of Nigeria has conceded gay people exist. It would be something to snicker at if it weren't so tragic. So up to this point, fundamentalism is not looking so good. Are there fundamentalist sects whose philosophies and approaches are more affirming and harmonious? I found one. It's the Amish. often associated in our minds with Quakers and Mennonites. Wait, the Amish are fundamentalists? Well, they take their lead from a couple of verses in 2 Corinthians. Be not yoked with unbelievers, and come out from among them and be separate, saith the Lord. Sounds pretty separatist. Put a mark next to that on our fundamentalist definition checklist. Also, many traditional Amish cling tightly to their German heritage, distancing themselves from mainstream Americans physically and culturally. There are distinct racial overtones to this. There's a practice also known as shunning, in which a community deliberately turns its back on a member who chooses to leave a particular congregation. Education occurs at home, and only through the 8th grade. That's as far as the Amish believe you need to fill your head with facts in order to lead a good Amish lifestyle, which is generally confined to agriculture, child rearing, and religious study. So definitely we'll put the Amish under the heading of fundamentalism. But how do the Amish mesh with the rest of us? Well, they don't. But unlike other fundamentalist groups whose beliefs put them at odds with larger society, the principal focus of the Amish faith is nonviolence, humility, and the German Gelassenheit, which translates roughly as composure. So while militant Islamic fundamentalists are flying planes into buildings and declaring fatwa, or essentially death sentences, the Amish register for the draft as conscientious objectors and pray for peace and nonviolence. They refuse to pay Social Security because they also refuse to collect Social Security. In 1965, the American government decided they had a good point and offered them an exception from the requirement. So while the Amish may not wish to participate in larger society, it seems as though we stand to benefit from their existence and their faith as a moral compass and a reminder of the power of peace. We agree to live together in societies and follow the laws of that society. And the only reason the legal system usually works, at least in America, is that we're all following the same agreed upon rules. The problem with all organized religions is that they are, well, faith-based, and when it comes to faith, there is no universal agreement. Clearly, religious fanaticism can never peacefully exist within a civil society because, by definition, it violates prevailing social norms. With regard to endangering others, violence is violence, and therefore fanaticism is, ironically, impotent. It will never accomplish what it's meant to, and thus can never elevate itself above terrorism. So what about the quiet, peace-loving fundamentalists like the Amish? The problem with fundamentalism is that there is no room for the belief system to evolve to match the evolution of the planet and our human species. We are constantly learning new things about what it is to be human. We've only begun to tap the power of the mind and understand quantum physics. And no religious text ever written has been able to address all that has happened and all that will come. And if the only constant is change, then any religion whose precepts include a refusal to change cannot survive. So while there may always be fundamentalists clinging to the idea of the past in the name of purity, their future will be an endless struggle against natural momentum. Now, what if there were only one religion? If you could give everyone in the world a pill that made us all have the same belief system, would you want to? Having different people with different faiths forces each of us to question things and develop intellectually. We need that. And frankly, forcing everyone to discover the same God sounds more like hell to me than heaven. The answer to building a peaceful global community is not to look to any one person or belief system for guidance, but to remove faith completely from the equation and build universal laws and agreements using the wisdom and experience that we all share. Despite the Amish and their pacifism, resisting change and rejecting diversity inevitably leads to violence. We've seen it throughout history. Accepting change and embracing diversity is the way to live together on this planet. That is our shared universal experience. And to me, there is no more fundamental way of thinking. We could talk about fundamentalism for hours, days probably, but the nice people at YouTube don't accept shows over 10 minutes in length, so we're out of here. But if you check back next week, we'll bring you footage of what Trainer Tom's been up to with his spare time. I'll give you a clue. It involves needles and painkillers and is definitely a part of life on the left coast.